Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. I haven't been drinking, I swear. It's Brian, Miss Berlin, and our good friend Amelie here. Hello, everybody. How y'all doing tonight?
Fantastic. It's
Awesome.
Sunday.
It
So
is
I just
Sunday.
I'll just call it the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say fantastic because I have all my fingers still.
Yeah.
Used lots of saws and hammers and chisels and stuff, and
Were,
I have all my fingers.
were
That's
you
why I'm
doing
doing so great.
Were you doing home improvement? It sounds like. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just lucky I didn't drop a 600-pound bike on my leg today.
Oh
So
my
that
God.
would be good.
I was
That
in
would.
tears on the way home. I saw the worst bike accident and I was, oh my gosh. This I hate that stuff so much since my son rides all the time.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought I might when I moved to San Diego when I was in the Navy when I was 22. I thought about getting a bike for about, I don't know, 5 minutes, and then my mother went upside my head and said, "No, no, no, I want you to survive." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I got a car. So she was probably right in this case, but yeah. Cool. So we're just here. Mr. Betcher is also DIYing at his house in Austin and could not get back to his home base to be able to stream with us. So he will not be joining us tonight. Miss Berlin is here. Post her. She was watching a marathon last time we recorded. She didn't run it because
Correct.
she's smart. She's smart. Nobody should
Values her knees. Yes.
exactly. Yeah. I don't
I
have
like
good knees
these.
either. I like my knees too. I saw a video of a guy on Reddit. He was running a marathon, and it was like, "What happened when your legs fail at a marathon?" And he's like, he's high stepping this thing in the last like 50 feet of the marathon, and then all of a sudden his legs just stop working, and he collapses to the ground. He's like crawling, like army crawling, trying to get to and there's like somebody like 20 seconds behind him, and you can see him in the background. He's reaching up, trying to grab the banner to win the race, and I was like, "Oh my God, I never want to be that guy." Um, well, maybe
I've
once,
done a
but
half.
wow,
I've done a
okay.
half. They're still not fun. I did it in Columbia, Maryland, and I was surprised every time I've been in Columbia, Maryland. I thought it was generally a flat town, but
Hmm.
the course was laid out over just every hill they could find, and it
Oh my
was
God.
basically just a hill climb for 13 miles.
Ugh. Yeah, I hear various marathons like that, like the Boston Marathon always has this one part of the hill, and um, yeah. So the Cleveland Marathon that Miss Berlin's fiance ran, I think, is one of those official ones that like you get to qualify for the New York Marathon or something like that. So
Hmm.
I myself would not pay money to kick my own ass at a marathon, but here we are. So. Um, cool. Well, I think we can go ahead and get started because everybody's
Sure.
here. Emily, good friend of ours, she has spoken actually at InfoSec Campout, which I wish we could
It
get
was
started
fun.
back up again. Thank you. I appreciate that. It was a labor of love of mine, and wish we could get something started up like that in Southern California. I think that would go gangbusters out here, but. She's spoken at numerous places. Honored to have her here. She's worked at all levels of government. She has also been recently, according to her updated bio, worked at Fortune One as a global CISO.
No,
What was
no, I led the omni-channel and artificial intelligent red team for them. So
okay?
get to poke and prod AI and their e-commerce in the ways that it didn't exactly want to be prodded.
Fantastic. Okay. And
Yeah.
has worked, led to the 2014 revision of FISMA, which, if you have worked in government spaces,
I'm sorry.
well, yeah, I had to deal with FISMA at one point. I also had to deal with FedRAMP, which is a whole different thing, and DITS and DIACAP way back in the day when I was working at Ultra Electronics. So, but yeah, thanks for being here, Amelie. Thanks
Sure.
for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
appreciate it. It's been a while.
it has been a bit, has been a bit. So we're just going to pick your brain about various things. So we have some questions. So we haven't pre-prepared these. She's not working with a PR firm. She's an independent contractor now, very
Yeah.
independent contractor.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to kind of pick your brain about being, not a CISO, but from all facets of your career. And so I think the first question I want to ask here is, should people continue to think of a CISO as a security position, or leaders in senior leadership in this case um, yeah, are they security leaders? I mean, or does it depend on the organization? Maybe that's not a good question to start with. But my first thought was, because we talked about this on the Facebook chat when I was like, hey,
Yeah.
we should have you on. And I was like, I don't even want to
Yeah.
be a CISO anymore. And it's like, are you even a security person at that point? So, I mean, what's your opinion about being a CISO these days?
Well, it's been interesting because I mean, having like been literally everywhere in like every industry vertical, I've seen how that kind of role is applied. Most recently, like at Walmart, like I was in awe of Jerry, who is our CISO there. He still maintains his NK certification. So this is a guy who, worked the ends, worked his way up, but he's had to be able to get to his level. Definitely has become more business orientated. That's really kind of reflected, kind of how that's communicated out to the different divisions and whatnot. And at least for me, like part of the things that we were doing with our red team was, before I showed up, most of the reports there were very like technician to technician orientated. So there was really hard to see visibility up above, like maybe a line manager or somebody who was in charge of a particular application or service line. Changing it so that you're creating an executive briefing, that helps that get jump those levels to like a VP or even to the CISO, so they're more aware, they're more willing to take that out to business leaders. So that's where you kind of see from the analyst channel up to like a modern, essentially a Fortune 1 CISO,
Mm-hmm.
how they have to relate to the business. Conversely, like as you work your way down, I think especially now that I've been laid off, reading more and more of these CISO job postings, which is hopefully, kind of was planned to be my next step, but just granted a little bit sooner than I was expecting.
Right.
You can see generally like the smaller, organizations, the startups and stuff like that, their position descriptions for CISO are still somewhat hands on keyboard, I think.
Right.
They want more technical direction. There's less discussions. As the company goes up, there's more business language in those job descriptions. Partner, leader, strategy versus like the startup ones is kind of more building. So you're having to kind of construct. It kind of falls apart a little bit when you get into like the public sector where I came from, 5 years ago when I left. CISOs in those roles, I'd say much more policy audit configurations, but as you go as an agency level, like the headquarters level, that is definitely like business relationships. There's most of the CISOs that I've come across in the federal government at a cabinet level agency, very business orientated. I couldn't think of asking them more direct security questions. In fact, most of them come from a CIO or CTO type of role, or IT program manager kind of role.
Right.
But then as you work down into like bureaus and offices, which are the smaller components within those agencies, then you're going to get, you have the chance of having an information systems officer that's dual hatted, kind of like a CISO title.
Mm-hmm.
That's having to be a little bit more technical directy. So kind of then more or less, kind of taking the shell of like a smaller company or even like a startup type kind of thing.
Very cool. Okay. Sorry, I was just, if anybody has any questions on our YouTube or our Twitch, please feel free to ask questions. We will get those answered in the order in which they're received. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's all. I've never worked at a really big company, right? Like, I mean, I have, but it was all like I was a cashier at Tractor Supply when I was younger, right? It's never been like in my professional career, I've never worked for an actual large company before, and I always find it interesting, like how much more different it is because you
Yeah.
start to see like mid-size level, like things start to get segregated
oh
and
yeah,
more siloed when it comes to stuff like that. And then when you get to something like that, like it's crazy siloed to like what you were saying, where you
yeah,
are at that level and sure you have security in your title, but that's a lot of business acumen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times now you see, I wouldn't say like they're B school folks, but like with the different changes in the regulatory environment now, like the SEC's, putting some pressure on organizations, and there's been the discussion for at least over a decade to have cybersecurity expertise at the board level. And just with that is like you're getting people to have to be more policy aware, more legally adept, and definitely can come straight from business without having been a practitioner. During this job hunt, I got added to, I guess it's called the CISO Society, and it's like this Slack chat group or whatever. And as I am as a security person, like I come across somebody, if I read in the Slack channel, if they have a really good idea, like I'll go and like search for them on LinkedIn, and I'm curious like what their histories are, because everyone kind of brings a different perspective on there. And if I come across somebody who is primarily maybe a consultancy background or a business background, they approach the problem very much differently, I think, than you would with a technician who's hey, look, I found this really cool hack, and they're going to talk about the technical thing and then say, oh, hypothesize like what would legal have to say about this, or what does this mean in the business context. So within that realm, there is some crosstalk about like, helping each skill set to help one another, but also some folks just go it alone. So they get into regulations like, okay, well, what am I getting myself into? What do I gotta be aware of? And they're, anywhere from getting professional liability insurance for those types of decisions to, getting riders on, if they're signed up as a C-level, get it written in their contract, like, what their parachutes are, what qualifies as a career limiting decision, as it would be like if you didn't act properly with a incident handling or response action, or something you directed led to a loss, you're getting shown the door at this point. And some of that's just from general business practices, but other times it could be from the reinsurer for cyber insurance. It could be regulations to the state, federal level, or even global level. So yeah, as you said before, it's like, why would anyone want to be a CISO now? Because there's just so much gotchas you could have in those roles.
Right. So you said you just got added to a CISO Slack, like a bunch of CISO folks are, all in a Slack channel talking about things. What is what's the thought going on right now in the CISO? I mean, in generalities, you have to. Are they freaking out? Are they okay with what's going on with regards to things like security? Is there anything that's keeping them up at night, or anything that you can call out saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe AI is going to take over my job," or supply chain issues, or I mean, what is some of the topics that they're talking about, or is it like what's our tea time next
I'm only
Thursday
3 days deep in it. I haven't. Yeah, I'm only
okay.
3 days deep, so I haven't actually like trolled the entire like history of it. But
yeah,
it's been interesting because like getting dropped in there from when like our own senior leadership team in our security operations group at Walmart, the kind of stuff that we would drop in there would be like, if there's a news item about ransomware, something that's more relevant to our kind of like specific industry, even though like Walmart was retail, like we have power generation, we have transportation, grocery and retail is one part, but then heck, we even do drone deliveries. Versus here's kind of the general thing, like, hey, there's a general data leak or password dump or somewhere, and that's the du jour, the news du jour that they're going to talk about, like, or say one of the, I don't want to spill out, like, because I'm trying to remember what I cannot say from the group, but say a vendor of theirs gets popped, and it's a consistent problem.
Right.
At what point do you kind of fish or cut bait and look for something? Or in this case, like it's a particularly valuable part of doing business that they have to use this vendor for. Should they, consult with their leadership, their own bosses, the CEO and stuff like that, and say, hey, political pressure here, like this vendor industry channel here should have some more regulation. And where do they bring that to? Lobbying? Is it just direct pressure to kind of get that changed, or put more onus on the faulted vendor to do better? Say don't have consistent data breaches. It'd be like we rag on T-Mobile all the time, like, oh, it's something that ends in a day, it must be another T-Mobile breach kind of thing.
Yeah.
So sorry,
Yeah.
T-Mobile, if you're looking at hiring somebody, I'm not knocking you. You're just kind of I get really careful when you're
You
like
can
hunting for
help
jobs, like,
though, right? Like
yeah,
you would be able to
yeah,
help T-Mobile.
yeah. Yeah, I just don't want to throw a particular company organization under the bus, because everyone has a bad day. I mean, it's
Right.
again, like,
Right.
it's not a matter of
Yeah.
if, it's a matter of when when something
Right.
happens. And
Right.
once you've kind of come to terms with that, then you're kind of like, okay, all right, I can sleep well at night.
Yeah.
And I think like over time it's gone from, the CISO's head was always on the chopping block
Mhm.
when breaches happened. I think it's not always not that case anymore, but I think less so, or maybe delayed more. I don't know what you've seen. I just think it's less sensationalized now. Stock prices don't do a crazy drop anymore when a company gets breached.
Yep.
Yeah.
People don't get let go necessarily.
I think of the days of Equifax versus well, heck, even like SolarWinds, like,
Mhm.
while similar kind of, oh, that's bad, the SolarWinds stuff, they kind of circled the wagons and kind of pushed through it, and eventually people got forced out, but it was like,
Yep.
let's work with the knowledge we have available, that are aware and how they know where the bodies are buried, versus like Equifax
Right.
immediately, I think, was within 8 hours or like the next day. And then
Yep.
everyone got on that CISO, like, oh, she was a music major and stuff like that. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like, I
Yeah.
wrote an entire white paper on that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I
And I
I
think they just
actually
elevated the most recent CISO there too. So
yeah.
Oh, all right.
yeah.
I actually am, I'm kind of, I when I saw that, I saw the music major stuff too, but I'm like, we have so many varied backgrounds in information security that we can't just say, well, they had the music background or whatever. I know people who've gone to 4-year degrees and they're not, Russian literature. They're not in Russian literature. They're doing something else, or they've been biology and, which works for large data sets. So now they're a data engineer or something. But yeah, I actually find it kind of heartening to know that there's a CISO channel out there where they're able to talk in frank terms about what's going on and how they are able to communicate with each other. I mean, it'd probably be better if it was like a Signal chat or something, because we see how well Signal works and in recently, but I just like the idea that they are able to talk that candidly about, hey, this vendor's not doing well, or when you hear people go, well, if this vendor sucks, people are going to know about it and it's going to cause them issues. Those are the kind of Slack channels I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's that, if this vendor sucks, these CISOs are going to know about it, or this company is going to know about it, and these companies are going to know about it, kind of like an ISAC, but a little on the lowdown, I think. But that's awesome.
A little bit more informal, but I think, obviously, if you're doing cyber intel or threat intel, like those other trusted channels,
Right.
those
Right.
relationships are an entirely different platform.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
but at least this is, an area where it sounds like they can kind of I wouldn't say commiserate, but at least, like, ask the questions as they would be if they were stuck at RSAC or Black
Yep.
Hat or any
Yep.
other places where the water cooler is.
Yeah, different vibes. Yeah. Okay. So let me see. I said, okay. So here's a question. What's commonly broken in most security orgs that should be involuntary processes but aren't, and why?
Vulnerability management. It's not that hard, man. It's real. Like, what, we've been doing this
You're
for
cutting me
forever,
deep.
but
Cutting
like,
me deep.
yeah, but it's also like, we've got basic, like, you don't have to make it like overly complex. This has always been, every organization I come into, and I'm just kind of like, how can this still be broken after 20 plus years?
Yeah.
I know the punching bag earlier this year was with the whole MITRE CVE NVD stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just one component of it, but the idea of, like, when you look at reports from different parts of an organization, and you're like, you have 10,000 vulnerabilities, there's no way that you, one, should have that, or two, are ever going to get around to patching all of them. Like, that just
Right.
doesn't, like,
Right.
doesn't make any sense. And it's just kind of like, this goes anywhere from system administrators and maintainers of that to developers. Like, the developers also introduce stuff that needs to get fixed, or they build fragile code that, like, well, we can't run the most recent version of this because we created this little hacky thing to get around this
Right.
foible, and that patch removes that hacky thing that we rely on, that whole XKCD thing, they
Yep.
use for open source, but it's also like just that piece of code that's holding up the entire, operations chain there.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, that just needs to be drilled in for people, and it just needs to be like muscle memory to just patch and build less fragile software and systems out there that can take maintenance cycles.
Yeah.
Somehow you hear that discussed in development teams or even operations teams, like tell the developers, make it easier to patch. So
Yeah. 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 I have been doing vulnerability management for a long time. It's actually how I got into information security, but I'm now doing bug bounty, which is kind of a different kind of vulnerability management. And so I don't know, you've probably worked with developers because you have software there as well. When you have 10,000 vulnerabilities, a lot of times those are, I would say a good majority are false positives or lower medium issues. And I don't know how it is with your org, but the lower a severity issue gets, the more unlikely that it is ever going to get fixed. So the prevailing opinion is, what are you going to do about those low and medium issues? And, some people are like, we can change, we should figure out how to do analysis and chain them together to show how, they could be actually worse than what they are. But I don't know if you've come up with any solutions on how to fix these low or medium issues, or if you even have people fix them at all. But um, what has what has been your experience with dealing with developers when you're trying to get them to deal with low or medium issues? In this case, is it something you even worry about? I mean, that's a fair question too.
well, I think, definitely now kind of coming from the perspective now of leading a red team where that is your high signal to noise vulnerability source, that would be the place where, if a red team reports you to this and they show you the attack chain and stuff like that, like this is stuff you should fix. And then while you're down there fixing, quote, the low ones, look at the other low ones while you're in there. Like it's basically, you have a surgeon opening up a body to like replace a heart valve, and then they find like you have lung cancer. They're just basically gonna be like, well, let's take care of that too, or at least wake you up in the middle of it and be like, hey, we want to take care of your lung. That's the kind of methodology that really should occur. Trying to get system owners and developers to kind of like do that, because some of the stuff is like programming logic error, so that you've got stuff that like you can patch, and then there's stuff that like actually maybe needs code refactoring, or it was just coded poorly, which is your core organizational self-maintained code. So there's like different channels of things that need to get fixed. So I actually ended up writing a small white paper. Mainly it was basically a rant in a business format.
Isn't that what all white papers are?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you're writing it for. Like if you're writing it like as a Gartner or Forrester analyst, that's a different tack versus like if you're writing it internally and you're trying to persuade people to think a different way.
True.
Was like giving it like 3 tiers. So, to touch on Brian's thing, like the first one is like your automated scanners, like your Tenables and everything else that's out there that's doing unauthenticated scans. A lot of times it's looking at banners, it's doing assumptions that you have things out there. That's a very, you're going to find that's where that 10,000 30,000 vulnerabilities end up showing up through. But then like the middle ground is like that middle noise, middle signal of like a bug bounty. Like you have people that are being paid to find a thing, but it's very tightly scoped, so you should be expecting like something to come from it, like a regular automated scan, like, oh, it trips over and finds something in the environment that popped up this month versus last month. Cool, awesome. But that's the one where the muscle memory should be there. Then as you get into more artisanally crafted vulnerabilities that are discovered through bug bounty or red team, like those are the things that like when they're presented in a format, either as a end of the campaign report for bug bounty or red team, those are the things that require the out briefing. If it's severe enough, like for us, that we had a flash report that we created, so like it was a major thing, like, hey, this needs to get addressed. Like we would not only send the report out to the people that need to fix it, you'd send it up to leadership so they're aware of it. And then you'd fix it during like a campaign, like just like this needs to be addressed because it's so egregious that if this isn't addressed now, like you're lucky that we found it, kind of thing. Right. So that's one of those cases where you can get the attention because you've escalated it so that someone's looking at it from both angles. Like we're still continuing our campaign and leadership is aware of it. So like if something happens, like your butt's out the door potentially.
Right.
But I mean, there's ways there. But one of the things I wanted to start at Walmart was kind of a educational program in a way, like, hey, these are some systemic things that the red team has found, and let's teach developers not to constantly reintroduce things,
Right.
say how they may stitch together authentication methods, or poor session management. Like, these are things like they may be aware of in pockets, but like, if we ever had like a global developers conference, like I would want 30 minutes on stage and be like, stop doing this, please, and here's how you can stop doing this. And hopefully like the code quality would have improved over the next like 12 months, and come the following year, like, you listened, yay, now we can move on to the next big sore thumb in the room and move on from there. But use this as a way to kind of like collect bad things that are going on and educate like how to fix them to the widest possible audience. Point education or point awareness just doesn't seem to really work, especially at scale. I mean,
Right.
my
Right.
boss, or former boss now, asked me like, are you afraid of scale? This is the big organization, big company. It's like, no, I mean, it's every problem is just a magnitude larger, but it gets down to like how you're going to attack the problem. And you can attack,
Right.
you can have a small organization with hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities, and you have a large organization with 100,000 vulnerabilities. It's just a matter of how you're going to resource fixing it at that
Right.
point, and then adjust the timelines and expectations afterwards.
Right.
Mhm.
Miss Berlin, you've got a smaller medium business org kind of thing. How do you deal with vulnerabilities or issues that might arise? I'm assuming you
Not my
have.
job anymore.
Oh, okay. All right.
No,
All
we
I
do
can.
have, you were mentioning that CISO, I don't know if it's Discord or Slack or whatever it is. The head of our security is in there too. And sometimes he drops like screenshots of like, hey, this cool thing was said about like this competitor, or somebody was actually asking about us. Or did you see this news article, because we've not seen it anywhere else before. So I guess there's a lot of really good stuff in there. I feel like I was added at one point, but it's not anything that I necessarily need.
First
Well,
rule
I
of
found a
CISO.
former coworker in there.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, when did you join? It was like January. I was like, damn it, you beat me. So,
Yeah,
First
but
rule of
we
CISO club.
we have other people. We have other
yeah.
people now that do that. I sometimes miss it,
Yeah.
sometimes not. I have to do other things at scale now, like figure
Mm.
out what people actually want in a product.
Peril sensitive sunglasses. If anyone's remembering Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I think
Oh,
every CISO needs the peril sensitive sunglasses that immediately go dark
Right.
when something bad happens.
yes.
That's
That would
right.
help them immediately in the case of a breach. You don't have to log on to Discord or Slack or whatever. Immediately walk in the office, they go dark. I'm like, oh, something bad just hit the
Oh shit.
fan. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So, which is a greater challenge, the public sector or the private sector? That's a
And I was
good
going to ask
question.
too, like,
I fed that question, you guys. Yeah, that
yeah,
was
well, I
Yeah.
was going to ask too, like, not necessarily what was the greater challenge, but I mean, yeah, answer that part too. But what did you like more too? So like, you can do the first challenge part. But I just personally maybe wanted to know the second.
Well, I mean, the money is definitely better in the private sector. There's hands down
Yeah.
not a thing. But I mean,
100%.
I love the mission in government, because everybody was your customer. There was no way of like you could just target somebody. Like, the whole thing with internet startups now is like you're trying to capitalize on an underserved market, whether it be somebody who wants an unlicensed taxi service to people who are too lazy to go to pick up their own food, and you get DoorDash. Sorry, DoorDash, if you're also hiring, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but I'm giving you guys an example as market disruptors. But especially in the public sector, like the idea of like you're there to do good. I don't think governments are there to do harm unless you're in an authoritarian environment, and we'll see how that plays out in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
But in most cases, it's the idea of like you're there to help. You're there to make things go smoothly, serve the public, whether it be a citizen or somebody visiting or somebody here for other reasons. Make you feel warm and fuzzy. Like when you think about like you go home at night, it's like, what'd you do for the world? Like, yeah, I made it better for other people. A lot of times when you're in the commercial sector, it's like, what'd you do? Well, I increased shareholder value. And sometimes that's missed, but the challenges are different too. So especially when I try to sell up feds, especially recent folks that have been riffed or been forced out or took early retirement. The cool thing about the public sector is they are making like, spinning gold out of like spit and baling wire. Like they can do, they're so resource constrained and having to work around politics that while they're dedicated towards a mission, they're trying to get it done in the best fashion with like the most minimal of tools a lot of times. And I know the news can spin it like there's millions of dollars being wasted on stuff, but it'd actually be more expensive if they could spend more money to get things done, but they don't, because there's still a limiting factor when you do budgeting and stuff like that. I think
Right.
the broad strokes that's been painted about like they just suck up money to do dumb stuff. It's like I've had to write budget requests and I'm usually presented with maybe a third of what I asked for, and you still got to do the work. It's usually
Right.
a lot of stuff's mandated. In the private sector, most cases, given the stable economy, you present a good idea how it relates to revenue and income and costs and protection, stuff like that, and you write it up well enough, most often you can traditionally get it funded and you can get it resourced and get it out the door. The challenge there is you get things from scale, you get things from complexity. You're usually working a lot more on cutting edge tools. It was really weird. The job prior to Walmart was electronic arts. I got to work in the video game industry, and they were all in on like AI and cloud and all the mobile stuff, like the kind of stuff that goes on in the video game industry, especially even for security, like cheat prevention and stuff like that, the anti-cheat stuff.
Oh yeah.
Some really deep things, and I was one. I proposed something for ShmooCon. I had to pull it back because I was too young at EA to present it with their level of confidence. But there weren't actually a lot of talks. I think there was like 2 talks over the entire age of DEF CON at the time, 30 years at the time, that ever really touched on video game security. And I was like, one was on World of Warcraft, and I think something else was anti-cheat related. So that's still a very, I guess, underexplored or undershared area there. But that was really kind of interesting and challenging, because it was you're looking at things that no one's really traditionally looking at, and that a lot of that research sometimes can help other organizations. So you have this opportunity to get dropped into certain places at a certain time and getting a lot more exposure than you would if you're just kind of waiting for it to come along, or say a business leader going, hey, we're going to go use AI, without a real direction. Here they were already doing reinforced learning through EA had a whole research arm to do that. So like when AI came along, it's like, okay, well, we'll just plug this in here and look at how it does with NPCs, automate like scratch audio to generate audio for NPCs and before they have the voice actors, just to kind of work on the flow. So that was really cool. And obviously transitioning to the new role at Walmart, like immediately I got to work on AI there. So I got to bring already like 2 years of experience into something that was relatively brand new there. So yeah, it's a give and take, but they're both challenging in their own different ways. It's just what they're motivated to kind of serve.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite Darknet Diary episodes, is the one about anti-cheating and World of Warcraft and stuff. Just that stuff's super interesting because you're serving a market of people that are already pretty technically inclined.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the gamified. That was the whole crux of it, is like you've got people gamified to win at the game, and then they want to leg up, so they're also like gamified to get around the security that's in place for it too. Attacking the hardware infrastructure, the game itself, the logic, all these things, all this surface area is just really kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah, I just if I want to do game cheats, I just download the Star Controller map, and then I can bypass the controls and pirate my games that way. So I don't play online games anymore. Last thing I played was like World of Warcraft when Pandaria came out or whatever. So
my version of cheating is when I need to look up a word for the crossword puzzle for New York Times.
Wow, you got me beat.
Wordle, get the Wordle solver. Yeah, like I run out of ideas.
Yep.
Yep. I think the only time I actually got banned from playing a video game was when Pokemon Go came out, and my wife and I started playing, and we found there was like a geo spoofing hole. So like I would go into work, I would park my avatar at like a botanical garden where there was a bunch of the places to get stuff, and just send it on a loop, and then come back at the end of the day and like pick it up from school. And
Nice.
eventually I guess it did a sweep and they banned our account. So I was like, I had like all the stuff and just like, wow, this so cheating doesn't really pay off unless you get caught. So but yeah, that was, I was like, okay, I'm good, I'm not gonna cheat in an online game anymore. I like, I could get around it, but it was just also just kind of like, oh yeah, there's repercussions from that.
Yeah,
So
I had three accounts at one time because you know I didn't have anybody else to play with, and really the only way you can win in Pokemon Go is to have multiple people helping you. So I would take walks, and I had my main phone, and I had two other phones that had the other teams on it, so red and yellow and blue.
You
So I
know,
had one
people
for
probably
each.
thought you were a drug dealer, right?
I probably was. I probably yeah.
Like this
or it could be
dude
like Todd
got
Park. He had
three
the
phones.
federal CTO under Obama. We were going into a West Wing meeting, and he had like three phones on him. He looked like the nerdiest Batman in the
Damn.
world.
Wow.
It was awesome. And I
One
let
is
him
the
know
secret
that, and he
phone.
smiled. And
It was
I
one the
think one
secret
is like
phone,
his
and
personal one, then his one was his team, and then like his government issued one that was like for
that makes
being
sense.
summoned to the West Wing type kind of thing. So yeah,
Wow. Okay. All right.
yeah.
That's okay. So, um, at the beginning of this, we talked about various CISOs and how they work, and I want to expand on that. It's like you've worked with a bunch of different types of leaders across different
Mhm.
organizations, and they bring their own style to the table. And so, I'm not hiring you for a job, but this is a recruiter maybe question, but what kind of leaders do you work the best with? And do you have to, I know you have to find ways to work with people who might be difficult. And what are some of those mechanisms? I know that some people, especially like myself, who are like, yeah, I don't want to work with that person. It's like, yeah, I avoid having to deal with that person. What are some of the coping mechanisms or things that you do to help, kind of
Some of us,
make that?
some of us move careers and just go into like a whole nother.
I became a TPM because I
Yeah.
didn't have to make dashboards. So yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, my out would be like a food truck that serves chili. I mean, that would be my exit. But
Nothing wrong with
no, I
that.
think when you bring up about the different styles, I mean, I've been assaulted at work when I had a CIO that was really like upset about something that wasn't my fault, but he like cornered me in a booth that we're doing when I was, it's my second job out of college. Definitely don't want to
Mm-mm.
work like with someone like that, like somebody who's just that kind of a hothead. So that's your upper
Right.
limit of like not person to work with. Anywhere down to like, I don't want to work with someone like super passive, like doesn't have a strategy, doesn't have a plan, they're relying on everybody else to kind of like guide them. There's collaboration, and then there's just kind of like you're hired and getting paid the big bucks to kind of like set a direction and resource it. And that just puts extra stress on the people who have to actually get the work done, or it prohibits really good communication. There may be a lack of trust there. Uh, Folks may be duplicating work.
Mm.
So, those are the two extremes. Um, I tend to work with folks better who are, kind of complementary, like not necessarily like yin and yang, like skills I don't have, but ones that they've maybe had a shared experience, shared background, kind of understand what it's like in the trenches type kind of thing, but also like, they get what I have to say, they understand, and I understand what they have to say, but they could be, somebody who's really deep in like threat intel,
Right.
not something I was super deep into, done it, but empathy for that.
Sure.
Or somebody who wasn't security minded, but like had the best like app development experience, like, okay, cool, I can advise you for everything else. So you got to, for me, it's a matter of understanding the resources and, just generally someone who can put up with me. I tend to use humor a lot. And if you don't like me dropping some jokes and humor and memes and stuff like that, realize those are people I don't want to work with. You got to be a little, I think anybody in this industry just needs to know that they need to be kind of light on their feet, loose, not take it too personally. I think that's what causes. I know there's some folks doing research. I think it was not Sean Gallagher, Bill Brenner, who's doing a research on burnout. And I know the mental health hackers as well.
Yeah.
To potentially reduce that is just have an environment where you're just not making this everything about you. Like, don't make your career you.
Yeah.
You can love
I'm
Right.
your
so
career, you
glad you
can
said
love the
that,
people
Jake.
you work with,
Yeah.
but don't make it be the end all anything so that you can go to, go on vacation or go to sleep at night and like be able to turn that off. I know a lot of people can't. And I think that's the thing that's causing burnout. So I don't want to work in an environment where I have to make that my entire identity, take it home with me, sleep with it, cook with it, sit on the couch with it. I was just like, no, it's good to kind of move on from there and trust somebody else. Like if you're on vacation, to be able to pick up, make good decisions and stuff like that too. I think that's that other aspect of trust, is like somebody who's not going to kneecap you at all either. And that's, I think, the other challenge too, as you work your way up into organizations, that cattiness that occurs, the crab pot of people climbing over each other to get higher and higher, gets just much more vicious.
Yeah.
It's backstabbing. There's malfeasance that goes on just at the personality level. That's, I think anybody would agree like that. They don't want to work in that environment, but that just tends to occur more and more. There's more palace intrigue, and
Right.
yeah, that's, I don't want that. I don't like that.
Well, that's kind of the reason I was suggesting the CISO thing, not wanting to be a CISO, because where I'm at right now, it's like I'm at the level where they tell you, oh, you can be 20 years at this role or this position, and I'm like, where's the ambition in that, right? It's like you want to be ambitious, you want to move up, but they're like, you can be at this position for 20 years, and it's like nobody should stay in the same job or in the same pay level for 20
Some people
years.
want that though. Some people want it. They say
okay.
I'd get bored.
Like, I think we all get bored. If anybody's online can raise their hand if they love just the same old clock in, clock out every day for 10 years in the cybersecurity industry, I would love to meet them. And yes, if you meet me at a conference and you're one of those people, I want to hear the explanation, because that's one thing I just don't get.
I've met some really, really good customer experience people, like CX, like help desk, like whatever you want to call it, that are always learning more, but they just love hands-on helping users so much that it's more about the people connection and the helping somebody like that all the time. And I think they continue to learn and grow, but like once you go to a higher position, you lose that.
Right.
There's very few other jobs that you have that you're working one-on-one with people like that. So I've seen it in that position before.
Yeah, I think that's, usually both, when I got dropped in to build this new team when I joined at Walmart, but also, I've gone through 2 hiring cycles, which is its own separate story. But when I have the phone screens with folks, and this was even in the federal space, it's like, I want to know what their level of curiosity is, like what their aspirations are, what their goals are, not just to figure out like, oh, they're competition, or, oh my gosh, they're going to be clamoring. It's like, I'm there to help support them in that growth. And if there's no desire for growth, that just means that they could potentially, I wouldn't say be complacent, but not, they may be hard to give new tasks to. I mean, definitely in the federal government, that was one of those cases of, we had the 2210 classifications for IT specialists. You had as a base one, and then you had like data management, you had InfoSec, and you get some people that were very stuck in the mud when I was doing some HR work to do some succession planning. And they're like, I'm only ever going to do data management. You can't make me do InfoSec. You can't declassify me to something else. And I'm like, we need to, because like our work has changed. Like you joined 10, 15, 20 years ago. The stuff that you do now doesn't translate well. Like you can be a Windows system administrator, that's cool, but you maintain your search, but we need somebody who's going to understand cloud or virtual networking and stuff like that. And if you're not willing to kind of grow there, it's that's where you talk about like coaching somebody out, which is, if you're not willing to kind of work here, we may need to find you another place. Not necessarily as a soft fire, but it's more or less like, if you want something a little bit more stable, or an organization that's not moving forward to just kind of do the same thing you're comfortable with, then I fully support that. And it's not a detriment. It's more or less like, I want to find the best fit for you. Right. And again, goes back to the questions about leadership, is understanding like, my role as a leader is not just also set strategy, it's also understand like what you want to do and support that wherever it's legal. Because I'd hate to say somebody comes in and is like, well, I love doing SOC work, but what I really want to do is I'm going to be a drug dealer. I'm like, no, I can't help you here unless you want to become a pharmacist, and that's a whole other type of drug dealer. So and not illegal. Not illegal pharmacists, but I mean, you get the picture. I gotta clarify that, because I have friends who are pharmacists and be listening to this, like, why'd you say that? So,
one of the things that I've been doing, because everything is heading to AI, and you worked with the AI red team, or the red team AI.
AI red team. We're not using AI for red teaming quite yet. Although seems like more and more people want to, but I'm just kind of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Did you ever find yourself needing to learn not just AI itself? Because I'm actually looking at some folks who helped out with some of the SANS AI security regulations. But did you find yourself like, oh my God, I got to learn something new? I've got to learn Python because I got to learn AI, or I've got to learn how to do prompt engineering for this, or was that, you know, stuff that your teams were doing, and it was like you just, you know, everybody needs to continue learning, I guess, but it's like, did you find yourself compelled to learn a new skill set in the past, you know, 4 or 5 years?
well, I wouldn't say necessarily like, yeah, I guess telling myself is like, I'm not the technician I once was, but, and this is the big but here, is if I'm leading something, and this is my personal mentality, is like, I want to know enough about it to be able to ask intelligent questions. I think that's also been my challenge, is like, when working with folks, is if I know enough to ask an intelligent question and can elucidate like a good answer, prompt engineering for your staff, to have them maybe explain it but not sound dumb, is good.
Right.
But other times, if it's a reasonable technology, like I've got LM Studio on my Mac here
Me too.
to bring up you know, certain instances for LLMs and stuff, just to like know how they work, know how they change. Especially like when we were standing up the AI team, or the AI red team, was you know, understanding the OWASP guidance, the MITRE frameworks and stuff on it. So like the things that we're putting in scope, or things we're targeting, to understand like, okay, this is the class of vulnerability that we need to be aware of, and know that, okay, so Olama is going to be different than the Anthropic stuff, which is going to be different than OpenAI's engine. And, you know, say, you know, training data leakage, that's one class there, or, you know, excessive agency is another. Like being aware of that, you know, there's plenty of tools, methods, and stuff to get out there, and I would rely on our you know, my engineers to know that. But you know, when we get the report at the end, it was one of those cases where I went through, I understood everything our operators wrote in there, but had to carve that around because they weren't explaining it well, and be like, okay, so folks who aren't, you know, that next level of tech up, this needs to be explained in a fashion like, this is why it's bad. And I've learned by translation rather than necessarily doing. And I think, you know, when you get to certain levels, you may, you know, that may be something you have to step away from. But, you know, like I said, I still keep there to go and explore and play around with, but I just don't have the time for hacking. I can't, this sounds really bad to say that, but like, you know, there's folks in our industry I know that like they talk about, you know, they're doing a doctorate, and then they're assistant professorship, and they're doing a startup. And I'm just like, do y'all sleep? Like, I have no time. Like, I like sitting on the couch and watching YouTube 2 hours a night, but I'm also like watching a documentary or something on that. And it's just like, man, I just can't do that. I'm 50 now. I can't. I just can't.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I've got Diffusion B on my local box. Some of the streams I've been doing recently had to deal with object-oriented programming, because, you know, it's trying to learn to be a, you know, I've gone 25 years in InfoSec, and I cannot learn a programming language for shit. Nothing. I can't.
Me too.
Me too. It's hard. It's really hard. Yeah,
it is. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just, you know, the same way somebody is like, well, I can't pick up French or German or whatever as a spoken language. I mean, I just finally figured out how to do ASL fingerspelling. I've had it on my like annual to-do list, and you know, a friend who is deaf gave me tips on stuff, and I forced myself to do it. So now I can actually like do some basic fingerspelling. But, you know, go ask me to pick up another new language du jour, and I'm just like, screw that. It's not my goal. If I have to, I will. You know, like, you know, the world's melting down, and AI is using this bespoke language, and be able to kind of like keep it from blowing up the world, you have to learn. I'm like, okay, cool, I'll lock myself in my room for a week before the missiles fall, and I'll figure this out, you know, kind of like, if Google I'm forced Translate. To do it, I'm fine.
I got Google Translate. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
How do I translate this method from Java to C++ to go over to Rust? And, you know, it's like, oh God, no. Yeah. Like,
yeah. I've been vibe coding quite a bit on my streams, trying to, because the boot.dev that I use has an AI with it. So if you get stuck, you can ask Boots, the AI, a question, and it'll be like, oh, you're doing great, young apprentice. And I'm like, yeah, he called me young. And but it's an interesting way of learning how to code because I've never actually done a coding job before. So I don't have a problem with the whole using an AI to code as long as I understand the code that the thing is writing in this case, which I think is the big thing. But um, sorry, I got off on a tangent. Going back to the AI
That's a
stuff.
good tangent. I was gonna jump on that tangent, which was like,
Please.
since we're not programming and then we're finding security vulnerabilities and stuff, and we're trying to talk to developers,
Right.
like I'm sure plenty of them are like, well, why should we listen to you since you can't code in X language that we're doing? And it's like,
Right.
because I've been doing everything else beyond that, and I get what you're doing. It's just
Right.
decidedly that I'm not like a developer. This is the life.
Right.
This is the path you've
Right.
chose. This is the path I've chose.
Yeah.
So unless I
When
can clone myself or move
Yep.
to a planet that rotates slower, that's that's all I got going. So
Yeah, I have tried when I talk with developers and they're like, oh, what about a solution for this? I'm like, well, it's input validation. It's cross-site scripting issues, so there's some input validation. You need to the one thing I try to not do is to kind of minimize the problem. It's like, oh, all you need to do is just this, or the all you have to, and because I know that I say it, but that doesn't necessarily make it easy to do. And so when I work with them, I try to figure out what they can and can't do. Some of them actually just I don't know how to do input validation with this system, and so we have to sometimes get 2 or 3 people in to talk about that stuff because sometimes depending on the developer, they don't do security, they code, and that's all they do all day. So it's been interesting. I try not to minimize their problems because um, I know that they maybe they just haven't consulted an AI yet or something. But I try to be cognizant of that because if they come over and they try to tell me security stuff, then I'll be like I'll be in the same boat. But yeah, it's interesting to learn something, especially at 45, because I just turned 45, and learning all this AI stuff because I feel like I need to not be behind the 8 ball because it's difficult, especially in this job market of which you now know. So my thought was since you're fun employed right now because you're hopefully having fun, you just drove a 600-pound motorcycle today. What are you planning on learning anything new, or is it just you'll be networking, or what does that look like for you?
well, I mean, yeah, definitely that's kind of the networking thing. I mean, the media blitz is an alternative method for me to kind of get some hiring there. So I actually take some time to learn some stuff. I mean, I've got plenty of like technical things to kind of pick up on. Like, I would like to. I wish I would have done it more when I was actually not fun employed, to take in some of the training sandboxes and stuff that we had. And now I'm kind of like, all right, so now I got to pay for them. Crap, I should have done it when we had that available. So yeah, no, I'd like to pick it up if there's something that drops my interest, like something I'm really not getting. Definitely would try to bone up on it. And as I mentioned too, I've got the studio stuff, so all the things, if I'm having a slow day with applications or my ADHD kicks in from LinkedIn, I'm just like, man, there's only one more time I'm going to have to go and put crap in a workday before I want to like,
no kidding.
Switch over to like banging on an LLM for a while. So yeah.
Speaking of futile systems, Workday, Workday is one of those. So yeah, it's
it's almost like they never asked anybody who has to use those how they should design the tool, because it is definitely not intuitive. And that's just, I think that's another thing too, is like when we do systems development, and that was something from HHS, is like we made a concerted effort to sit down with the folks who be receiving the system we were developing for them, particularly an HR system, and like show us your workflow, show what works, what doesn't work, what is processing, like really honestly understand that flow, and then have a persona that was be a job applicant and try to figure out how that works out. But here it's just kind of like, Workday, this is all the data that we need to collect. Here's some weird spreadsheet interface. Oh crap, or build a workflow form to have people fill it out, and just like, this is how you get vulnerabilities, because like it's just a serve all type kind of application. It doesn't actually serve anybody a lot of times. So you get into those situations pretty hard too.
What I love is they try to analyze your resume and they try to fill their fields in, and invariably they get it wrong. And you end up having to fill out all that stuff anyway, even though you've uploaded your resume. Taleo was another very popular one for me. Found out eventually you have to create your own text, like notepad resume, so that way when it invariably mangles your resume, because there's no standard format for a resume, you can just dump the text file in and call it good. That was yeah, just nightmarish. Actually, I
That
have
would be the one
not.
reason I learned AI tools, is to have them fill out resumes or fill
Yes.
out stuff. I've heard that, you know, from the hiring manager perspective, like there's supposedly all these botted resume submissions. I'm just like, at least for the ones I had, they weren't botted. They were just really bad resumes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if I'm going to use a bot, I want it to be a quality bespoke resume that gets injected into their system, rather than just kind of like,
Yep.
hi, I'm a cake decorator and I want a scissor roll, you know, type kind of thing. So
That would be great if I could be a cake decorator and a CISO. So, but
yeah, go
Probably
home,
could be.
you know, get the piping out and work it over. Yeah, nothing against cake decorators. Cake decorators do some amazing stuff.
yeah,
And we got
yeah.
Duff up there in
Charm
Baltimore,
City.
up the street.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we got another couple questions, and then we'll let you go because I know it's late for both of you. I appreciate y'all staying late here. What was something other than AI in the last 5 years that like really stuck its ugly head up and it was like, wow, that's something I wouldn't have expected to occur other than AI? In this case, what was something that you know at EA or Walmart or you know in the last 5 years was like, wow, I can't believe this actually became a thing that security people have to worry about. And I'll ask Miss Berlin
Wow,
this too.
that's a good question. Yeah, let Amanda go first, because I'm gonna have to spin on this one for a little bit.
Oh gosh.
From a threat intelligence point of view, I would imagine you've got a few things. Because I'll tell you, in the comment here, my thought was supply chain, right? Who would have thought supply chain would have been
Yeah,
like
but
something that was
more. I guess that is a
No,
little more in the last 5 years. But I mean, people have always worried about supply chain. Maybe it's just been
better
used
marketed.
more.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I
Yeah,
was
like
assumed when
Alan's
they
got a job.
yeah
So like
Bigger,
Mr. Freeman has a job because that's a big concern now, and that's
maybe
good.
bigger
yeah
impacts. Bigger
Yeah.
impact in supply chain because there's more technology out there
right
than there
right
ever has been.
and a lot of breaches happen from third parties that are vendors, which you use them as part of your supply chain. I think a lot of people, when they thought supply chain before this was, you know, how's my radishes going to get from my field to the supermarket? You know, that kind of supply chain, not
True.
necessarily security supply chain, or, you know, where are all your chips and your devices coming from? Or, you know, which npm packages have been owned up in your software stack, that kind of thing, those kinds of software. That was one of the ones I was like, okay, I can't believe that actually became a thing, but that's because the bad guys were already thinking ahead, right? So they're already creating their own AIs for evil. They're already working on this stuff.
I'd say maybe like getting back to the job stuff, like the North Koreans, you know, as the IT worker mule type kind of stuff. Like that was one I wasn't seeing coming. I was like, that's a real interesting way to burrow into an organization. But like having followed North Korea from the time I was at DC3,
and wasting everyone's time because of all just the massive amount of work that people have to go through to prove that people are real.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that goes in even like the deepfake stuff now too, because I'm sure you all seen that video where, you know, it's a 30-second clip of this guy interviewing somebody that obviously has a face swap going on, and he's trying to direct him like, put your hand up, and he's doing this as far away from like where his face swap is getting. I'm just waiting for like a pair of lips to show up on it. It's like, okay, that's a definite thing. But he's like, try to move it closer, and just before it gets to his like the side of his face, like he logs off, and just kind of like there's that kind of concern. Yeah, like the whole real-time deepfake stuff was one of those things like, oh, that's cool, that's clever, it's cool, we can see it in Star Wars and whatever, but oh my god, now I got to really worry about it.
Right.
And like that's a soft attack. That's a human attack aided by technology, rather than like somebody launching a DDoS or, you know, bypassing, you know, weak authentication and stuff like that. So Yeah, those are definitely be ones I'd say is stuff that I didn't think I'd have to worry about, but
That's
surprise.
a it's a good social engineering thing, you know. It's like, oh yeah, you know, and it kind of feeds into the company's avarice, right? If you want to see so and you're only going to pay them $60,000 a year, and somebody's like, yes, I will do it. My name is Jim Kirk, and this is my wife Oprah, and you know, we'd love to do your CISO job for $60,000 a year, and come to find out it's North American IT worker who thinks he could be a CISO or something, but the companies, you know, they're easy to social engineer at that point, right? It's like, oh, this guy checks all the boxes and he'll be worked for the, you know, the crap that we're going to pay him for. So, um, yeah. Plus, there was a couple companies I didn't expect to have that happen to, like Mitnick's company was, I think, the first
Oh, no
report I think we
before,
heard of
yeah.
that. Yeah, no
No
before
before.
guy. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
wow, your social engineering company, but you got social engineered. And I was like,
They're good though.
any given
They're
Sunday, you know?
good.
So, but you know, it was just interesting to see. So,
Yeah, this is like
um,
anybody who took the DISA training and suddenly figures out how they can get that person from having to steal their phone from the lockers out there, you know, that bit.
yep,
Like, oh, who
exactly.
successful, the training worked. So
Yeah. Miss Berlin, you
really
got
low poly
yeah,
characters.
very yeah, it doesn't have to be sophisticated if it works. So yeah, that
Yeah.
old adage. Miss Berlin, you have any other questions? RSA? Anything? If you don't have any questions, and how was RSA? Because you both went and I didn't. So
Yeah, we saw each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the hug at the booth? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the
Yeah.
first friendly face I'd seen there outside of the was it Tonga Con on
All right.
Sunday night.
Yeah.
That was
Did
interesting.
you
But
go see the puppies and the goats?
yeah, actually, that was the one thing that took off on my LinkedIn when I posted from there. No one cared that I actually took like a side trip to go see Lucasfilm. It seemed like, but yeah, when I posted about the puppies and the potential lepto spread, like that was the one that got
ooh,
some traction on LinkedIn. Yeah, so they had puppies that weren't fully vaccinated, and they'll say they did otherwise, but I actually
mm,
looked at the book, and they were those dogs weren't by their ages weren't ready for, you know, like public consumption. And if you've ever walked around San Francisco, there's a lot of excrement on the
Up.
pavement, and that's how puppies get sick when they're
right,
puppies. They get
right.
spread to that. And you know, they had the puppies there and they didn't have like shoe covers, or they weren't clean, you know, wasn't like cleaning to ensure that you weren't tracking stuff in. God, I'd hate to have to see what they found on that carpet when everyone was gone. But
Mhm.
sorry for going down that path, but now you got me thinking.
Try not to think about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting marketing thing, but I don't think live animals outside of humans needed to be there at the vendor floor. I think that was undue stress. And as a dog owner myself, as I literally said dog owner, and one of my dogs walked into
Aw,
the office here.
yeah.
Come on, buddy. You know, don't take it to the little tour. Come here. Oh, you're chasing the cat. That's why. I've got 4 animals. So here
Yeah.
we go.
I've got 3. Thankfully, all
Yeah,
of my.
there you go.
Aw,
Oh.
he's a
Yeah.
good dog.
Yeah.
Aw,
All right. There, you're my show dog now. There we go. There's the bark.
we got 3 cats.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah.
The goats and the dogs. Left a bad taste in my mouth. So,
Mm.
but
So why go to
it was also
RSA?
interesting seeing. Oh, sorry.
No, why go to RSA? I mean, it's you know, there's Black Hat and there's DEF CON and those things, but it's like it's one that I have avoided, and I don't know why go to RSA. You go for different reasons, or you know, if you go to, you know, what's the difference between it and a Black Hat or a DEF CON? Is it more technical for the Black Hat than RSA? Because I've always considered it to be like a marketing convention.
What's
Kind
your
of.
thoughts, Amanda, before I speak on that? Because I have very strong feelings about
I
it.
promised I was trying to make it a goal my entire professional career to never go to RSA because everyone says it's terrible and there's never, you know, it's all marketers and people trying to sell stuff and it's like no groundbreaking research has ever come out of RSA.
Okay.
And then one of was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, one of our marketing team members submitted a CFP for me and it got selected. I'm like, well, crap, now I have to go because I have to speak. Um, it wasn't groundbreaking. I talked about Sysmon. It's been around for forever. Um, it was just like how to use it best in your organization and some examples of stuff, right? There are good technical talks. There's good high level talks. There's a lot of okay talks. I was also on one that was just about um, zero trust, and we probably didn't help anybody in that audience
Right. Right.
like learn how to implement zero trust, right? Because it was very
Right.
non-technical. Um, Lots of marketing, lots and lots and lots of marketing, and it's kind of a dog and pony show as far as like getting investors and stuff like that if you're fundraising. And if you are one of the big organizations, I think you just kind of have to go
Right.
at this
Right.
point, right? Otherwise, it's like a who's who of security kind of thing.
Right. If you're not
Um,
there, that's a bigger
and
problem than if you're there. So,
right,
right.
right. I just
Right.
like personally have a problem because it's like there's so much waste at those conferences, and it drives me crazy because shipping is so expensive that people just buy stuff and leave it there. I don't know where it goes,
Damn.
but like
Yeah.
just the money going around there and all of that's like it's insane. I've had a lot of really good conversations, but yeah, that's my
Hmm.
feel on it.
Yeah. Well, that this year was my first RSA. And I think when I ran into the normal crowd that we tend to hang with, like they were really surprised it was my first RSA, but not necessarily in a bad sense. Like, I'd known about it since it was founded. And I was like, I always wanted to go just to go in a way. Like, it's the FOMO a little bit, but now they've gone, I've had my perspective on it. And you're kind of aligns with you on that. Like I think of like, we're talking about, this would be a nice tie to the beginning here. Like, so you're a newly minted CISO or you're an SVP of cybersecurity or whatever it may be. Normally, as you're working your way up, I would assume you somehow show up at a Gartner conference. So like the IT leadership one, or like the one they have here in DC for cybersecurity. And that's the like, what to expect when you're expecting type kind of thing. Like, okay, you're going to walk into this. These are some things that you're like, here's some general knowledge. Like, this is where the bathroom is, cafeteria, here's your seat, and here's regulatory concerns you have. RSA is like that next level down, I'd say, not in a bad way. Like, number of people that show up, it's probably about maybe equal or even more. But this is where, okay, you've been in the chair for 2 to 3 years, hopefully. Most don't seem to have that length of a thing. So this is kind of like, the zeitgeist of what's going on. Like in case you're not wired in, or maybe not, in the Slack channels and stuff like that, this is where you can kind of go and get up to speed, but also like, not have to schedule a meeting with a vendor because the vendor's already there and going to try to sell you stuff,
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, so you can hit all your vendors, within a week, just having private meetings with them and stuff like that. But like for me, like I made a note, like 99, 98, 99% of the vendors there were all defensive related. Like it
Right.
was either application development support or sim stuff or SOC aids and all sorts of things like that. And maybe there was, some smattering of, yeah, we can do pen testing for you, or here's some red team tools that are available. But it was all definitely defensive, audit, policy, and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
it's a great place if you're on your heels. If you're a CISO on their heels, like you're constantly being barraged, you're not leaning in to like,
Right.
making things better. That's probably where to go. But yeah, it's really just there to I'd say it's kind of hobnob, because then like Black Hat, when I first went to Black Hat in 2010, like that was still kind of technical, because like I think about Barnaby Jack, like that was the year I was there,
Right.
and he did his
Yeah.
jackpotting one, and I saw both the Black Hat and the DEF CON one. The DEF CON one was definitely funnier and better, but the jokes were generally the same. And I was like, okay, so you're getting the same content, but the reaction in the audience is somewhat different. Like I think Black
Right.
Hat was just like, everything fell flat. It was like, oh my God, you hacked an ATM. Versus like everyone at DEF CON was like laughing their asses off. I'm like, okay, different crowd, different intent.
Right. Right.
So seeing that kind of content. And then, now they joke about like, Black Hat was what RSA was like 10 years ago, and DEF CON's like what Black Hat was 10 years ago, and then B-side is kind of falling up the rear. So, the scope, the size, the topics and stuff definitely change. We're, I think, in the green room talking about like how expensive DEF CON is this year. I think when I started it
Yeah.
was like $180. It's now over 500.
Yep. Yep.
Inflation, what's the value out of it type kind of thing. This is nothing against Jeff and Nikita and all the folks who put it on, but it's like, it's getting up to there where you're starting to cut off like kind of people who can actually afford to go to that. And, as a goon, and yeah, you all would know this too from that. As a goon, like, you usually, especially for me, like when I would do the merch stuff, is like you're running into people all different levels. Like first time at any security conference, or they're there because their friends are there, so they're not in
Right.
security, but they're now security curious. So
Right.
that's an advantage too. But I don't think anybody
Right.
goes to RSA be like security curious. Like you should be at least aware why you're here.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
My thought was, because we did talk before this, that you would have liked to have networked a bit more had you have known your outcome was going to occur. And as I'm starting to network myself, because I'd like to actually either get a leg up, or get into product security like what Miss Berlin's doing. And I realized that I network with folks. I think you want to network at the places those similar people are. So above. So if you're going to network, you're going to go RSA because that's where the CISOs go, and that's whatever. I have found when I go to network in places like San Diego, when I go to the local DEF CON group, I'm like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a SOC analyst. I'm like, yeah, I'm not trying to be a SOC analyst, or, the IT help desk person who wants to get into security. I'm like, 10 years ago, I would have networked here. I should be networking here. But it's like, I'm thinking maybe if I wanted to network and meet new people, or meet, people I would eventually inherit their positions, if that was still a thing, you'd go to the RSAs in this case. So in your case, you're networking at the black hats and the RSAs, because that's where your next step will come from, or someplace like that. Probably a better chance of that.
Well, the best evening was actually Gotti Evron's the birthday his birthday party. I guess it was the old farts party or whatever.
Right.
And that one was actually probably the most fun and best networking of all of them, because there was commiseration, there was networking, it was seeing old friends, it was seeing Bruce Schneier slowly get drunk on the rooftop deck, which was something to see somebody you normally see so straight laced and just really kind of like really relaxed. And
Right.
I was like, cool, he is a human. Good to know.
Yeah.
Not a robot, human. Those types of things. But then, like, I got invited over. Aaron Reinhardt invited me over to one of the happy hour things that was occurring on the Wednesday night, and that was for the startup crowd. And I'm just like, I'm not of that cycle. Like I feel, I was coming into San Francisco, and you're driving over to the hotel with the lift and everything like that. And I'm just like, man, I don't see myself being able to live in this environment. Like maybe I aged out of it. Maybe I have different motivations. I can't do the grip and grin to sell an idea. I mean, I can if I have to, but I don't think so. So if you're going there and you're trying to make business connections, and I know some folks who were doing that kind of level of connectivity there. So I don't have anything to offer those types of people, because I don't have a purchase authority. I love that t-shirt, no purchase authority when you're walking the vendor floor.
Right.
But also, like, yeah, I'm not in a role where I can say, hey, let's bring you in. But I am a role where I'm like, that's a good idea. I'd like to get you connected with somebody else. So I'm leveraging my network a lot of times, or even like a gut check. Like, Jack was pitching his new company, Jack Cable. And it was really cool. Like I saw it and he's like, yeah, we did this in 2 months. I'm like, holy heck, this is an amazing leap forward in those 2 months that you were working on it. And I'm like, cool, I would, I can see where this works in, or just basically blatant tell them it's like, we're not at that level right now. So it's just kind of also a gut check for them. And it's a way to leverage those trust networks. But yeah, no, I don't think I'd ever go back unless I was, a Fortune 200 CISO, where where like, that's part of the pay package, I guess, but also the demand is to go network with your peers. Grip and grin and whatnot, and take a Waymo everywhere type kind of thing. So
yeah, that makes sense. Well,
the Waymos were cool, by the way.
The driving cars, yeah. Okay.
Oh, those robotic taxis were cool as hell. Yeah, that was the highlight of the RSA for me. So
yeah, it was my first time in one too.
Got to try that when we go to Vegas. See if I can get one done over there. So cool. So Emily, thanks so much for being here. If people want to get a hold of you, for discussion or opportunities, how would they get a hold of you?
I mean, I do have a Twitter handle, but I don't log in too often. Blue Sky, LinkedIn, search for the name Web Jedi is my handle. Also, that's going to hit the most on Google if you're stuck for that. I also have a very unique name. I don't know of anybody who's got it. So if you get the spelling right or remotely right, you'll find it. My email address was really easy to find, but yeah, also in Signal as well. So, if you reach out to me
Cool.
on a non-encrypted channel, I'll be able to flip over to something else if you need to have a confidential conversation as well, or whatever means, as long as it's not through Telegram. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Right on.
Smoke
Awesome.
signals work too, but I don't know if I can see them because of the curvature of the Earth. So,
Oh, no,
far
the
enough
Earth's
away, that'll
flat.
be difficult.
Earth's flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. No, it's not. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Miss Berlin, how would people find you if they wanted to talk about, RSA or AI or, SOC or anything like that? Threat and
Don't
tell.
come and talk about RSA. That's done
Oh,
with.
we survive RSA. We
You're
we
allowed to
survive through
talk to me
RSA. We
about
don't.
it when I'm there. No. Let's see here. So LinkedIn's probably the best, to be honest.
Okay.
Because I don't check the rest of them very often anymore. I'm really bad at social media since COVID.
Okay. Are either of you going to be at any conferences soon where people might be able to see you?
ShowMeCon, I'm keynoting ShowMeCon next weekend.
Damn.
Cool.
Okay.
And I love it there because uh it's in a casino in St. Charles, Missouri, I think, like outside of St. Louis, but they
Yep.
have a really cute like, downtown area, so we're gonna go there and like do a little vacation beforehand.
Very cool.
I'm more
Okay.
excited about that.
Yeah. For
Right on.
me, I'm trying to line some stuff up since I'm a free agent and I don't necessarily have to go through speaker approval anymore. That's
That's
the nice
cool.
thing about being laid off.
Right on.
I haven't seen anything in the paperwork to keep me from speaking, but I'm also like cognizant of my severance could be deducted if somehow I run afoul. So I'm careful about that, but at least lining up. I did speak at WESIS Women's Cybersecurity at the beginning of April. So that was like my last pitch there. But I think I got a couple others. I'm talking with some folks to kind of help out, especially if they need somebody to stand up and dance on stage. But
Awesome.
if you need somebody and you like hearing me flap my lips about various topics, feel free to reach out as well. So
There you go. There you go. All right.
yeah.
Excellent. You can find Mr. Betcher on LinkedIn as well if you go search for him. I'm on LinkedIn mostly and Reddit, which, I'm not even doing a lot of cybersecurity stuff on Reddit. But yeah, if you find me on LinkedIn, you can hit me up and hit my DMs there. Yeah, check us out. The VOD will be up on our YouTube channel. So if you go YouTube and do a search for BrakeSec, you'll find us there. We have a almost 500 hour or over probably closer to 750 hours worth of video, interviews, stuff that is hopefully evergreen. If you're looking for CPEs or something as a CISP or whatever, those actually work surprisingly, as long as you can give a brief synopsis. Anyway, yeah, thank you both for coming. Emily, thank you for helping out, and I hope this is one of many podcasts comings and VODs and streams that you'll be doing in the next few weeks. So yeah, hope you land quick. So yeah,
I do too. It'd be nice to, income is good. Food, clothing, roof. Yeah, that kind of stuff is usually the basics. The Maslow's order. So,
that's right. Hierarchy needs.
Internet's in there somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that was it for Breaking Down Security this week. Thanks again to everybody who came on the stream and are watching. And yeah, we're just remind everybody to take care of themselves and look out for one another. And, as we're fond of saying, you got to take care of yourself because you're the only you have. Okay? All right. Y'all have a good day. Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Bye.